Okay, hey gang, welcome to this little episode of Photographer's Lair. I'm going to be working on showing you some sky enhancement and replacement methods using Lightroom and Photoshop in conjunction with Lightroom. So real quick, just to kind of run through what I'm going to be looking at is something like this. We got a nice family photo. This is downtown Indianapolis. Those of you here in the city probably will recognize this as the canal walk, but nice photo, but the sky and everything here is just a little bit blah, so I switch over here and click on this one if it ever brings it up. Maybe a little over the top with what I did on this, but just to give you an idea of where we're going. And this was completely done in Lightroom. There was no Photoshop on this image. And then I'll play around with this one of my wife dressed up as a cosplay steampunk rogue. So this was done in the latest release of Lightroom, which is really pretty nice. I know there's been a number of people that have had some issues with it. A lot of different reasons for that, possibly. Usually it's related to different plugins or presets that you may have installed. Hopefully you got that worked out, but what I do in here is based on the Radial Filters and the new masking features that they've used in that. First of all, with this, I'm going to set the lens profile correction to get rid of a little bit of the barrel distortion that's going on there. And then just kind of crop it in just a little bit to make sure it's even. So right off with Lightroom, just bringing highlights down will help. As long as you haven't blown the sky out, it'll bring a lot of that back, and then I'll pull the shadows back up to bring detail back into our subject. And then I typically will bring blacks and whites just a little bit positive on the white and negative on the black, just to kind of push the contrast up a little bit more. And you can, depends on the look you want to do, clarity. I mean, if you take it to the extreme, it's like almost like an HDR kind of look, and obviously I don't want to do that. And then the other way, you soften things out to the extreme. Typically with a photo like this, I might put the clarity up just a touch, and vibrance I'll bring up a little bit as well. Now, the difference between vibrance and saturation really is that they both impact saturation, but vibrance is what they call a smart tool. In other words, as you push it, it doesn't completely, blow saturation in your highlights, whereas that gets way over the top. So it's typically one where if I want to boost saturation a little bit, I'll stick with the vibrance. Okay. Then if you want, you can come down in here on your color section and do some specific toning with the blue, like pulling it down on luminance and boosting saturation. Again, like I said, the one that I did earlier, I probably went too far, but toy with that until you get what you're looking for. The orange tones impact your skin tones on most people. Even dark skin, it'll adjust it somewhat. So, sometimes with this, I'll boost those just a little bit. If people have a very orange tone to their skin already, I'll kind of drop that down just a touch. And then, to show you what I do with the Radial Filters, like over here where this highlight is, I'll just drag to do this little filter here, and then hit the invert, so that the only area that is actually being affected by the filter is inside the oval shape rather than outside. It defaults to outside. So since this is kind of a lens flare area, I'll probably push that to make it even more flary, for lack of a better term. Whites, don't want clarity. I'll bring it down to soften everything out. If you really want to get crazy, you can pull dehaze down. You can see that really blows it out quite a lot. Then I want to push the temperature up just to give it a little bit of a nice glow. bring down the sharpness, and then what I was mentioning before is these range masks. This is the new feature that they introduced in this update with Lightroom. So here I want to go with luminance, and you don't have to do this with this particular one, but so if you bring this up, you can see what it's doing is it's taking the impact of this filter off of the dark areas. So this is your luminance masking. Doesn't quite work if you go from the highlights, but I typically would pull just a little bit out of the shadow areas, since this is a light flare kind of look, and then maybe doesn't have as much of an impact on this particular one with the smoothness, but that just kind of, well, smooths out the edges and how much of the image is impacted by that. I think, yeah. So if you hit down the Alt or Option key while you move this slider, you can get a better look at exactly how it's impacting what that mask is doing. Okay, so there's that one. And then I'll create another one over here in the blue. Probably just bring it all the way on across like about there. Invert that again, and then instead of boosting the exposure, I'll actually bring it down. And yeah, you just kind of adjust those to get the look that you want. And this one, what you can see is it's starting to actually, you know, darken the tops of the buildings and everything. And that's where this range mask again will help, because you pull this up and you'll start to see it bring back some of the tone in the tops of the buildings. That's with those on and off. And if you want to, you can just really deepen that blue down. So pretty quickly, that's basically where I went with the edit. Let me see if there's anything majorly different. Yeah, I think I had that one brighter than the other one. That's all right. So that was just using Lightroom to enhance a little bit of the sky within this photo. So if we go over here, and you can see this sky is pretty well completely just washed out. I think there might be a little bit of a color to it if you bring the highlights down, but even then it's just a gray blah. So really want to just go, and this is how I edit between Photoshop and Lightroom. Just right clicked on the photo, edit in Photoshop. And it launches Photoshop, obviously. Okay. You can see that, yeah, with that sky just blowing up that way, we want to bring in something different. And I have a collection of a few different sky backgrounds, but one of the things you want to keep in mind is understanding what might work with the image, because there's going to be little fringes, the chromatic aberration and things around some of the brickwork and in the leaves and everything. So let me just show you kind of the difference here. This is probably what will look the best with this image, but I'll go ahead and say maybe we wanted to try this one too and see what kind of look we could get with it. But one of the things you want to keep in mind too is the lighting that's in your image needs to kind of match with the sky that you choose. You can see here it's kind of late evening and there's not really any direct light. I do have a bit of a fill light on her, but you can see it's all pretty soft. There's no direct harsh shadows. So if you were going to go and put like a sunset scene in the background behind here, it just wouldn't quite look right with the image. But what you want to do to start off is to select the white areas of this image where the sky is, the white and light blues here. So go up to select color range, and you can see here you have a color picker, and you just pick on the white part of the photo, it selects that, and this kind of shows you what the overall mask will look like. And then there's fuzziness, which impacts the range of the image. So if you take it all the way down, you can see there's just a very narrow band of that color. So you want to have something that gives you a good overall selection of the sky, and you can kind of see in here that like part of her leg starting to come in, and a little bit of that is okay because you can adjust this after we create the mask, but most of it you just want to have it in the sky there. So we'll go with that. Click OK, and you can kind of see it gives you the little marching ants everywhere. And what we want to do after that is to just feather it by 1 or 2 pixels. I usually just stick with 1, just to kind of soften it up and let it blend into the rest of the edges of the scenery a bit better. So then we go to our sky, and with that just selected, you can just come down here and hit your layer mask icon, and it automatically dumps it in there, and right off the bat that looks pretty fantastic. Okay, so with that, like I mentioned, there's a little bit coming through on her face, and if you want to see exactly how that looks, if you hold down Alt or Option and click on that layer mask icon, you can see where some of the other bits of sky may be impacting some of the image that you don't want. So right on this, we can just color. I've got my brush with 100% black, and I'm just going to fill in those areas where I know we don't want to have any of the sky showing on our base image. And again, alt clicking on that kind of helps see where you may be going with this. We're going to fill all that in with a nice solid black, like so. Alright, so real quick, that turns out to look pretty sharp. Also, since the trees are a little bit blurred out, not terribly much, but if you want it to look like just a little cleaner, we want to do a bit of a blur on that cloud. So just a good simple Gaussian blur. Bring it down around 9. Okay, that works nicely. Okay, now as you can see right up here, you're working with a TIFF file when you transfer between Lightroom and Photoshop like this. I typically just save it with the layers intact as a TIFF, and I'll show you when we get back to Lightroom that it just appends the file name with edit, like right there. And you can go back in and change that and update the edit at any time, and those changes will be reflected in Lightroom as well. But real quick, I want to kind of show you what would happen if we were to do this same thing with this sky. So if you control click on this mask, you can see it selects the same thing. So we'll go through that same process here. So right off the bat, you see that just looks kind of odd because of the fringing that's going along on the edges of all these elements and in here around the leaves and everything. So that part of it looks weird, plus that sky, as cool and dramatic as it may look, just doesn't quite fit with this image. Just because of the lighting, it seems like the light direction is maybe off to the right behind this wall here, and then we've got her with just the nice soft diffused light, so it's just a bit strange looking. So we'll just get rid of that and stick with this overall. And I'm just going to Control S to save it. You can also do file save if you like using the menu better. If you come back over here into Lightroom, you can see, okay, we've got this. Now, like I said, if you want, you can, I'm right clicking on this, show in Explorer, or on a Mac, I'm not sure what it says, but it's right here. This Rogue 9534-edit is a TIFF file, but it will maintain all the layers. So if you double click and open that, the layers that you saved will still be there, and you can continue editing it and make changes as you see fit. So then you can come back over to the develop module here and refine the photo however you want to. I like to do a little bit of split toning every now and then just to see what the image looks like with it. You can kind of... The other thing I didn't do was to get rid of that stupid car in the background, and I'll show you what I was talking about. So if we actually close that out, come back over here, show in Explorer, and double click, open in Photoshop. See, right there's all our layers, and I can go in here on the background and we'll just clone tool that sucker out of there. Good enough. You'll never notice it. Alright, and save again. Now it might take a few seconds or minutes or whatever to update, but at some point that will drop that car back out of this file. Yep, there it goes. Alright. And sometimes, I don't know what this is, it's a little display bug or whatever, but jumping back and forth between the library and the develop modules, it'll go away and show back up, but if you actually export the file, it'll be gone. So that's pretty much what I would do with an image like this one. So yeah, we've got a nice sky blended in here with this image, and now that I look at it, I might want to tone down that blue a little bit. And I would just come over here and maybe drop saturation on the blue just a hair, just because this overall image is not quite that punchy. There, maybe something like that. And you can actually shift the color tone to make it purple. That's a bit much. Yeah, I think maybe right there, just a slight shift more towards the bluer end of things. Alright, so thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, and feel free to give it a shot. There's a lot of other ways you can do this as well. If you have a straight horizon and not all these other objects in here, you can just use a simple gradient mask, and that works really fast and really simple on a lot of images. Okay, so thanks for watching, and let me know if you have any other questions or items you'd like to go over in Photoshop and Lightroom, and look forward to next time.